and thank you for joining us for the 8th in our Work Study Primer series. Today's topic is on over-earning prevention. You may be familiar with this image from the Work Study Supervisor website. As you probably know, if you're on this presentation, we have a series called the WS Primer series of instructional videos on different topics within the work study programs here at UNC. As you can see towards the bottom, over-earning prevention, evaluation, conduction, and developing and promoting students are coming out this fall. By the time this video is posted, all three of those should be available to you, thus completing our cycle of training for the year. If you have any questions about these videos or need additional instructions, you can always email the work study team at work-study@unc.edu. So today we're going to talk about a few tools and a few resources that can help you prevent over-earnings. We're also going to define what over-earnings are exactly and walk through a couple of processes that my team utilizes to help you prevent those from occurring. A couple tools you might want to note also on that Work Study Supervisor homepage, which you can find by Googling UNC Work Study and clicking the Supervisor link in the middle of that page. There is the Fall Springtime Record Log. As you can see on the left, it is on the Work Study Supervisor page under the Tools section. It's also available to students directly under their work tools, where we call it the Time Record Log. We'll walk through this tool in a minute, but in essence, it is a way to produce a real-time accounting of students' earnings and remaining eligibility under the program. There is also an hour planner, if you look under the supervisor page, or on the students page, the work schedule planner, that will allow students to plan out their hours in advance, thus ensuring that students are able to earn the maximum amount of their award, as well as prevent them from earning an excess amount of their award, maximizing the benefits of the program. So jargon, two terms that you'll want to be aware of that we will utilize in this presentation are over-award and over-earning. An over-award occurs when a student receives more financial aid than allowed under federal, departmental, university, or other program regulations. Within the work study program, we have a specific type of issue called an over-earnings, wherein a student earns more through their work study position than they are allowed under the federal work study or Carolina Works programs. In both cases, whether it's federal work study or Carolina Works, any amount of award over the student's allotment is a violation of programs and can lead to an audit finding, as well as fines and penalties. So, why is it important to track the payroll earnings? Well, it's the only way to prevent over-earnings, as we just said, and these earnings are capped by a number of regulations. Also, for those of you who've been through the annual training presentation, you might remember that both students and supervisors are actually responsible for ensuring compliance in this area. Any excess in pay has to be reported to the university, the Department of Education, and as previously mentioned, can lead to audit findings, fines, and penalties in excess of $25,000 per case, and the potential loss of funding to the university through the Federal Work Study Program and Carolina Works program. And specifically to you as a supervisor, repeat violations can be cause for removal from the program. We choose not to utilize this option if at all possible, but in the case of supervisors who are repeatedly causing violations, and those violations may result in funding losses to the program to the detriment of all work study supervisors and students, occasionally we do remove departments and supervisors from the program in order to save the rest of the program from negative impacts. Here at UNC, we actually are very effective at preventing over-earnings, but that still doesn't prevent us from having them on occasion. During the 17-18 school year, we actually saw 8% of our students experience an over-earning. That's 199 students out of around 2,400 employed students. Those 199 over-earnings, if applied to the maximum $25,000 audit finding, could result in a nearly $5 million fine to the program. As you might imagine, our work study program is not capable of absorbing that loss, so the program is only about $5 million to start with. So we are very, very interested, and we need to keep our over-earnings down, which is why we rely heavily on you as supervisors to help us in this. For the record, that nearly $5 million fine could be prevented by preventing $83,000 in over-earnings amongst less than 200 students. So it's a very manageable program. I'd like to walk you through a couple of reasons why these over-earnings occur, and then get into the tools and techniques to prevent them from occurring. So this is a simplified version of our 1819 payroll. Those of you who are familiar with the program know that our students are paid on a bi-weekly basis, not monthly basis, so this doesn't align, but it's been simplified for the purpose of demonstration. Here you can see 4 different colors of data. The black color is the amount of a student's award, the green is the student's earnings, and the blue color down at the bottom, which changes into red, is earnings / over-earnings. So what we typically see in cases where over-earnings are present are students have a fairly stable earnings over the course of the academic year until about April. And at this point, there is an issue that arises where over-earnings occur in a few hundred students. And this is normally a result of a lack of real-time interface between students' work, the work being entered in TIM, the TIM information being reported to payroll, payroll paying out the wages, and the actual accounting information from that payroll being sent back to the work-study program so that we can reconcile it and notify you as a supervisor and the students of their earnings. So what we see is an inflection point right around April most years, wherein students, if you look at this green line, have only earned $28.50 that's been reported back to them. But in reality, because of the time delay, they've actually earned more than that $28.50. So JobX is showing $28.50. If you ask my team, the accounting information we have on hand is $28.50, but that student has already worked several weeks, and so they're actually over their award from that point, resulting in over-earnings. Let me depict this a little different way. So work study, both the federal work study and the Carolina Works program, pays out every 2 weeks, but it's for the preceding 4th and 3rd week. So if we look at, say, a pay occurring on October 27th, that student is not being paid for the 14th through the 26th. They're actually being paid for September 30th through the 13th. So that's not weeks 1 and 2 prior to the pay date, but 3 and 4. This is that time delay, and this is what causes most of our over-earnings, is simply a lack of real-time information to students and supervisors. For the record, if you would ever like to see the exact payroll schedule, you can find it under UNC's Finance Department. The website, if you want a direct link, is here, or you can simply Google UNC Finance pay periods. That will bring you to a series of schedules, and you are looking for the SHRA payroll period schedule. So that's why over-earnings occur. Let's talk about how to prevent them, shall we? The first option is to be reactive using Federal Work Study, Carolina Works Communications and Reports. Let me show you what that looks like. So the reactive reconciliation option really centers around the work of the work study team here in the Office of Scholarships and Student Aids. And every payroll period, we will get information reported back from finance and accounting regarding the student's earnings. We will track this. We will set up a communication system. We will notify you of these earnings when students reach certain thresholds. I realize this is a rather complicated spreadsheet. I just wanted to give you an overview of the tool that my team utilizes. Let me show you the same information depicted in a more graphical format. So here's how the reconciliation workbook works. We take information from accounting regarding the student's actual payroll. We take the student's previous balance from a prior reconciliation, and we take employment data from JobX so we know where the student is working and with whom. We feed all that information into the reconciliation workbook, and we come up with 3 categories of students. We find students that their earnings are near their limit. During the fall and spring, we utilize a $550 threshold, so any student whose earnings are $550 or less remaining, i.e. if it's a $3,000 award, they've earned $2,450 or more. Those students will get a notification. If the student has actually earned more than their award, so if the student's award's $2,700 and they've earned $2,701, or if we have previously identified a student in one of these 2 categories and that over-earning continues to persist. In all 3 of these cases, we will send email communications from the work-study@unc.edu email account to both the student and the supervisor to notify them of their status. Supervisors will be then requested to, if there is an over-earning, send those over-earnings back to the work-study team using a PAT entry, which is a way of switching the payroll from the federal work-study or Carolina Works funding back to department funding. And we ask that this is done as quickly as possible. It's taken account for in Connect Carolina, and then that information feeds back into payroll, and you see a cycle of this. One quick word here is employment data is key to this, as we are utilizing JobX to connect with a primary supervisor for a position. This allows us to do two things. One, we always know who is the most up-to-date supervisor as long as positions are being updated. Two, it allows us to feed earnings data back into JobX. So if you ever look inside the JobX system at the student's application for the position and click on that application, you can actually see the student's earnings in as close to real time as we receive them and reconcile them. So if at any point you need to know how much your student has earned, you can simply look in JobX. And if you need an as of date on your way to log into the JobX system on the supervisor page, in the bottom right corner, we always have a notification about the reconciliation pay period and date. So if you need to know an exact date, we will tell you that the information in JobX is good up through pay period, for example, BW09, which ends on October 28th this year. And then you can look at the application to see the exact amount the student has earned, and also the student's award, so you know how much they have left to earn. Now, again, I would like to emphasize that this system is not real time, unfortunately, because of the delays between students working, the data getting entered to Tim, payroll, accounting, that information being sent over to my team. The best we will ever have JobX is 2 weeks behind. Typically it is 2 to 4 because of the delays in the process, but I have some better solutions for you that do work in real time coming up on the next few slides. So here we go. We've done reactive. Let's talk about a pen and paper mode. It's very simple. Every time you go to sign off on a student's timesheet and approve it in Tim, you simply write down how much they've earned, take that away from the balance. So in pay period 5, they earned $150. Their balance is $25.50. In pay period 6, they earned $167. You can add that to the $150 from the previous pay period. Know they've earned $317. Get a balance of $23.83, and you can just repeat this process ad nauseum through the end of the student's employment or through the end of the year. Of course, this is pretty manual, and it does require you to do math, and you have to keep up with the sheet. So it's the least recommended option, but it does work, and it works in real time. The next obvious option is to sort of build a spreadsheet to replicate the pen and paper method. It's easier to keep track of because it's on your computer, the same place you're going to be approving Tim. And it also allows you to put in some mathematical functions just so you don't have to worry about basic arithmetic mistakes. So if you wanted to build your own spreadsheet, it might look something like this. You've got a $3,000 award. The pay periods that the student can work are all listed, and you simply fill in the amount of earnings in each pay period, and it does the exact same thing as pen and paper, where it sort of subtracts that amount from the total earnings, giving you real time as you go through your Tim sheet. Now, also an excellent option. We realize that some supervisors in the program aren't especially adept or interested in creating their own workbooks, so we have created. So that tracking tool is our time record log. If you log into the supervisor resources page, look on the left hand column, look down at the bottom, you'll find it. And that tool looks a little something like this when you open up the Excel workbook. It's fairly simple. All you need to do is put in the student's allotment at the very top of the page in the green cell, whether that's Federal Work Study or Carolina Works, still works the same. And then put in the student's hourly rate in the blue box below that, and it will automatically calculate the number of hours that the student can work for the year. As you fill out Tim for the student, you simply put in the number of hours the student has worked for each pay period, and the tool will automatically calculate the number of hours remaining for the rest of the year that student can work. You can also use this proactively if you wanted to estimate the number of hours that a student could work. And you might be happy to know that we have actually revised this tool. it now calculates both the remaining hour balance and remaining dollar balance if you are tracking things in terms of earnings. Now, why would you be potentially interested in utilizing that tool to plan out the students' hours for the year? So this is data from last year's annual survey of students, and we asked students, how much did you expect to earn and how much did they actually earn in this survey? And when you look at the curves of this is how much they expected to earn, how much they actually earned. And when we overlap them, students are okay at estimating their earnings, but they are a little low in their figures. So it is to your benefit and their benefit to help them sort of plan out these hours in advance, potentially having them reach their goals a little early. So we created another tool to assist you with that. This is very similar to the time record log. We call it the hour planning log I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. It works the same way. You'll put the student's allotment in the green box, their hourly rate in the blue box, and it will track the number of hours and the number of dollars remaining in the student's award. And this can be utilized to plan out students' work schedule over the course of the year. It also includes some very, very helpful dates when the university is closed, when the students might not be around, when students need to stop working for the year. And as you can see, we've included the website where you can find this tool on the right side of the page. Another tool that we started doing last year to help supervisors is we started doing what's called a January update. So we will actually, at the conclusion of the fall semester, receive the students' earnings through pay period, I believe BW12. Through December 14th is the effective date here. And once we receive that information, which normally happens around January 20th, we will reconcile that information and we will reach out to every work-study supervisor who's currently listed in JobX with a student and let them know exactly how much that student has earned and how much they have remaining to earn for the year. Now, please keep in mind, because there's some delays in this, the data will only be good through the 12/14 date. So any earnings that happen on 12/15 through through 1/20 when the reconciliation workbook is constructed and these updates are sent out will not be reflected. But if you are using a tracking tool, this is a great way to double check your figures, or if you are sort of in need of setting up the tracking tool, this is going to give you the ability to start at a solid point. So I'd like to talk about one more item which might lead to students over-earning their award, and this is due to changes in a student's work-study amounts during the academic year after they've been hired. This commonly occurs for only a handful of reasons. Either the student receives a scholarship or some financial award that they weren't anticipating, that they did not notify the scholarships and student aid office about, and we are forced to adjust their budget to account for that award, or the student elects to convert a portion of their work-study award into a loan in order to gain access to that funding faster. I'd like to talk a little bit about the reasons why those changes precipitate alterations of the work-study award and what we are doing to keep you as a supervisor from experiencing an over-award and the headaches that go with it as a result. Two quick pieces of formula that you might want to, that you will need to know. This equation is a staple of financial aid, and what it stands for is the cost of attendance, the cost to the student to attend school, less the student's contribution as calculated by the FAFSA or profile is equal to their need. In other words, what it costs minus what the family's calculated to be able to pay towards education equals their need or a gap in funding. That need at UNC will be filled by a variety of vehicles, including work-study, but the combination of these vehicles cannot exceed that need amount. So if a student has been packaged up to their need, as all of our students are, and an additional source of need-based aid comes in, we have to make an alteration to the student's financial aid package, commonly resulting in a shift to the work-study amount. So here's an example of that. We have a student, they have a cost of attendance reflected here, and of that cost of attendance, part of that is family contribution, Part of it is need, and that need is filled by, as you can see, work study and grant. If a student's package includes a outside scholarship, say from the student's home county or high school, not making an alteration and just adding that scholarship results in an over award, which you might remember from the beginning of this presentation is when a student has more aid than cost of attendance, and that is a violation of federal regulations. So in order to resolve this over award, what we do as a department is we actually reduce part of the student's financial aid, resulting in a reduction to the federal work study award. Now, my team recently, last year, for the 17-18 academic year, started sending communications anytime these revisions happen. Those notices are sent weekly on Mondays and include any revisions that happen in the prior 7 days. The reports have to be sent out of the RPT system, which is not real time, hence the delay and waiting until Monday so we can capture everything from the prior week. Please note that you as supervisors are not responsible for any over earnings caused by revisions before notification. If a student has an award come in of $1,500 in an outside scholarship and they've already earned $1,600, there's $100 over earnings, that is not your responsibility. My office will handle that issue. However, after the notification is sent, if that student continues to work, we cannot be responsible for those over earnings. We simply don't have the resources to pay for it. But then again, it's a very rare situation where that situation occurs. Most of the times the over earnings happen well before the student has exhausted their award. All right, thank you for sticking with me through this presentation. I was Josh Leonard, and with Mr. Thomas Harper, we are the work study program staff with the Office of Scholarships and Student Aid. You can find us either by emailing work-study@unc.edu or going to our website, which you can find there, or simply Googling UNC Work Study. Thank you for your participation in the program and reviewing this presentation. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.